In this lesson, I'm going to explain how to apply and adjust After Effects effects. To follow along, go to Working Files, After Effects Projects, and open up 1301 Apply Effects. I've got this comp here with 3 layers on it, and we're going to apply effects to all 3 of those layers at some point in this lesson. We've already worked with effects up till now. We've worked with the paint tools up here, which are actually effects, and the puppet pin tool, which is also an effect. And with layer styles, if you right-click, let's say, on one of these layers down here, then you got layer styles, and you applied them as well. Those are all effects. But the preponderance of the effects over here in the Effects and Presets panel. Now, if you have your workspace set to standard like so, and it might be kind of crunched down like that, but we'll just lift it up so you can see it more effectively like that. You see they're divided into categories. And I'm going to talk about these categories and some of the effects in them in the next lesson. But right now, I just want to show you how to apply effects. So let's go find an effect. I want to apply a blur, let's say, to this watermelon clip. So I'm going to go here to Blur and Sharpen. And here's something called Fast Blur. And I want to apply it to just this video clip. So one way to do that is simply to drag the effect to the layer. As you drag down here, you see that the layers kind of light up. Whichever one that you want to apply it to, you just make sure that one lights up and let go. And that applies that effect to that layer. And as is the case with many effects, nothing happens because that effect sort of arrives in neutral. But you see it over here in the Effect Controls panel, which opened up automatically. If you don't see the Effect Controls panel, go to Window and just click on Effect Controls panel to make sure the checkbox is there. And there it is. And here's that effect for that clip. And you can tell it's this clip because it has the name of the clip up here telling you that's the clip this effect is applied to. Then you can adjust, let's say, the blurriness. There are only 3 different properties here, and that's one of them, adjust the blurriness. There you go. The other property here is this Repeat Edge Pixels thing. Right now you got this transparency around there. Just click on that, and that takes care of that. There you go. If you want to keyframe things, you can turn on keyframes here. Let's say blurriness will turn that on. But to really accurately adjust keyframes, it's best to work on that down in the layer. So you go down to the timeline down here. You see the layer is open now because we add that effect, but it might not be. It might look like this. In any event, you open that up, you see you now have an effects property group. And inside the effects property group, you've got that effect, Fast Blur. You open that up and you see there are the same 3 properties that were up here. And blurriness has already had its toggle animation switch turned on, as you did up there. And if you want to change the keyframe, let's say right now it's blurry at that time, I can take that keyframe and move it out of the way here and put it at the beginning, for example, and then I can have it be not blurry here by taking blurriness to 0, and we've now created a keyframe from blurry to not blurry, like so. I'm going to delete that effect by clicking up here and pressing delete, or going down here and pressing delete. If I click on effects, I can delete all the effects at once. In this case, there's only one, but I can do it as well. So like that, it's gone. I want to show you 3 other ways to apply effects. So I'm going to go get a different effect now. I'm going to look for an effect called Emboss. And if you know the name of an effect, you might not know which of these many categories is actually in. So you can search for it by simply clicking up here by this little magnifying glass and start typing in the name of the effect. So Emboss, and boom, right there I've got these various embosses here. Now there's a preset, which I'm not interested in. I'm actually interested in the effect itself. Now I want to apply emboss to the text. I can drag it down to the text like that, or I can drag it to the text right here inside the comp panel. Now notice how when I drag it to the text, it turns red, because that's the color of the label over here. It's red. If I drag that outside there to the little shape, you see it turns blue, because that's the color of the label for the shape. And if I drag it outside that, it turns aqua, because that's the color here of the shape. Let me just pull this away for a second. So if I change the color of the shape layers label to, let's say, red to match the text, to go like that and go red, things might get a little confusing now. I drag it down here. Is it the text or is it the shape layer that I'm dragging it to? So that's one little advantage of having these labels be different colors. Let me undo the color thing first of all here. Go Control-Command-Z and put things back in order. Now I'll drag it right to the text. There you go. This one automatically kicks in and does something from the very beginning. And then you can adjust things later like that. So another way to apply it is simply to drag it to the object here inside the comp panel. Sometimes there are many objects and it's hard to really get it on the right one, but in this case it was fairly easy to do that. Do Control-Command-Z, don't do that. I need to track down drop shadow now, so I'm going to highlight this and start typing in DROP, and then you start seeing things show up again. Got some presets again. Eyedropper, we don't want that one, but we do want drop shadow right there. So I want to apply that to the shape layer. Another way to apply an effect is to have that layer active. In this case, the shape layer is active like that. And then just double click on the effect and it automatically applies to that particular layer as long as that layer was active. Now you can see the drop shadow by, let's say, increasing the distance here. Now you can see that we applied the drop shadow there, just hanging there below there. Maybe you can't quite see it. I'll increase the opacity so you can't miss it. There you go. There's a drop shadow right there. I'm going to delete that by clicking on this and pressing delete. There's one other way to apply an effect, and that is to use the effect menu. If I open that up, you see all the various categories here, matching the categories over here. Make sure you can see that by closing that down. If I go over here and go effect again, you notice that the categories are grayed out. That's because this panel is active as opposed to the timeline. Make the timeline active, and now I can go up here and you'll see that it'll be grayed out again because no layer is active. So I go to the last one here, watermelon harvest, and now when I go to effect, then the options will be there. If I want to track down something like, let's say, stylize, and I want to go to mosaic, well, here I need to know where it is. I can't search for it there, but I know I want to find mosaic inside the stylize menu. So I go there and click on that, and that automatically puts a mosaic effect on there, which allows me to change the number of boxes like that, or blocks, and I can cause that little mosaic to appear inside that layer. I want to talk about the order of effects because the order counts. So I'm going to go over here to the color correction and add 3 effects. I'm going to start off by adding Colorama. Let's scroll down a little bit to Colorama. There you go. Watch what happens. I just apply this one to that layer back there. It puts that amazing set of colors on there. I'll close this thing down so you don't have to see the whole list of properties here. I'm going to add hue saturation now to look like that. Add a rise in neutral. I'm going to change the hue here by changing like this. And finally, I'm going to add something called tritone, which then lets you pick a color to be kind of the predominant color. So I'll make it, let's say, green. Let me just close the disclosure triangles for these 3 things so you can kind of see them like that. Whatever effects you put here, the effects are applied from top to bottom, from the order that you place them in here, but you can rearrange them. So I take tritone and put it at the top. What's going to happen? Bam, you can see there's a significant difference because tritone took a color, and now Colorama doesn't have many colors to work with. Put that at the bottom. Same kind of routine. All kinds of stuff can happen depending on the order that you put effects in. So you do need to kind of be mindful of the order. And you might think that you've put an effect in and you're wondering why it's not really working the way you thought it would work. But then look at the order of the effects that you've got there and see what's going ahead of it. Then determine, okay, I guess I should have done this in a different order to get the effect that I want. And if you do want to check things out, you can always turn effects on and off with the effects button here. Turn off Colorama. It looks like that. Turn off tritone. Looks like that. Turn off hue, obviously we're back to normal, but I could try tritone by itself or Colorama with tritone, things like that, all these different combinations. And sometimes you want to turn an effect off because it sort of consumes so much processor power that it's best to turn it off while you work on other things because you know that effect is doing fine. So turn it off to settle things down while you work on something else. So that then is the basic process to apply and adjust effects.